Hey guys, JamesMCD Reviews here. Well, since tomorrow is Halloween, I figure we should end this month-long series of videos by taking a look at my all-time favorite horror franchise. And surprisingly, despite what you might think and despite how many videos I made about it, it's not Halloween. No, my all-time favorite horror movie series is the Saw series.
I know these films are an acquired taste for most people, but I fucking love them. Most of them aren't even that well made, and yet I still keep coming back to them. Directed by James Wan and written by Leigh Whannell, the first Saw started off as a low-budget indie film that grew into a massively successful horror franchise. It spawned 7 sequels with another one on the way, 2 video games, a roller coaster, and some ridiculously funny internet parodies. What many considered to be mindless torture porn became a Halloween tradition for so many moviegoers, myself included. But with so many horror franchises out there, what stands out about this one to me personally? Well, before I get into that, I feel like it's appropriate to do a quick recap of each film so you can get an idea for the story. Bear with me though, because this series gets incredibly convoluted.
I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible, and I might end up missing some stuff, but if you want a full, detailed analysis, there are plenty of videos on YouTube that I highly recommend. I'll leave links to all my favorites down in the description, but for right now, let's get into this.
The first Saw came out in 2004 and centers around 2 men, Adam and Dr. Gordon, who wake up in a gross bathroom chained to the wall with a dead body in the center of them. So the whole rest of the movie is them trying to figure out how to escape before the doctor's family gets murdered, while also trying to figure out how they got there in the first place. For such a simple premise, it's surprisingly very clever in its storytelling. It's a genuinely good mystery where you're finding out the pieces of the puzzle at the same time the characters are, and the twist at the end is very effective. It's not a flawless movie though. The acting is pretty cheesy. I mean, Carrie Elway's American accent sounds awful, and Leigh Whannell, I think it's safe to say he is a better filmmaker than an actor. On top of that, there are a few plot conveniences. Like, how did Jigsaw know that Adam wasn't going to drown in that bathtub? How did Jigsaw even find these people anyway? How did he know that when the police officers found his hideout, they wouldn't just kill him and free the guy that they had trapped? But aside from those, I don't really have much to complain about. It's a great story that builds tension very well, and it leaves a lot to the imagination. It would honestly work great as a standalone film, but, you know, it made money, so... Cut to October 2005, and Saw 2 is out in theaters. And like most horror franchises, this is the film that redefined the series. For one, the traps are a lot more gruesome. For 2, the twist is a lot more stupid. And for 3, they shift the focus of the story towards the villain himself, Jigsaw, aka John Kramer. And even though it created a hilarious string of sequels going forward, this is honestly my least favorite of the films. It's not as clever as the first, but it's not as dumb as the other films, so you're kinda left with a film that's just boring at best. But anyway, the story this time is Detective Matthews is investigating the Jigsaw murders and learns that his son has been kidnapped and placed in a trap house with a group of other people. So him and his crew ambush Jigsaw and try to get him to spill the beans on where his son is being kept, while the people in the house have to escape before they get poisoned to death. So even though this is my least favorite, there are a few things that I like about it. First off, Tobin Bell as Jigsaw is perfect casting. He has such an intimidating presence, and the way he talks so confidently, like he's convinced himself that what he's doing is right, makes him like the Thanos of slasher movie villains. He's one of those guys that you want to learn more about, but he's so intimidating that you kind of just want to study him from a distance. Also, as dumb as the twist in this movie is, I'll give it credit that it was at least set up well enough in the first film so that it's easier to buy in this film. Also, even though the traps in this film aren't all that memorable, the one that makes me gag each time I see it is the pool of needles. That shit is more disgusting than any of the gore in this series. But like with all the films, there are a lot of dumb plot conveniences that are impossible to take seriously. Like, how did Jigsaw know that Amanda wasn't gonna die in that trap? How did he know that Daniel wouldn't die? How did he know that every single person in that house besides Amanda and Daniel wouldn't get out of there alive? How did he know that Detective Matthews wouldn't do the exact opposite of what he was supposed to? How did he know none of the officers would check the video screens to see if the game was live or not? This is getting really stupid, but you know what they say, it's all downhill from here. 1 year later and Saw 3 is out, and since they ended the last one revealing that Amanda was helping the whole time, they decide to develop her character a bit more. But now her character is kind of inconsistent. Like, how did she go from a fragile junkie to a bloodthirsty psychopath in a matter of 3 films? Like, I understand why you had to have her there in the second film, but now that they've changed her character completely, she isn't all that interesting anymore. Like, maybe it would make more sense if she was doing this against her will, but we don't really get confirmation of that until Saw 4. But we'll get to that in a minute. So the main plot of this movie centers around a vengeful guy who lost his son to a drunk driver. He ends up in a trap where he has to choose whether or not to save people who are involved. Wasn't the whole point of Jigsaw's games that he only puts people in traps who take their lives for granted? Like, if this guy was suicidal, then maybe I'd understand, but he's not. He's just really pissed that he lost his son. And again, how the hell did Jigsaw know that all these people were involved? Did he have Amanda go out and gather evidence or something? Also, why does he take forever to save these people? By the time he finally decides to set them free, they're already pretty much dead, so what's even the point? And the one person he does manage to save just dies by mistake in the next trap. Oops. Meanwhile, they've kidnapped a surgeon so she can perform brain surgery on John, and by the end it's revealed that the guy in the main game was her husband. But good thing Amanda shot her for no reason, causing Amanda to get shot by the husband, who gets pissed at John and slashes his throat, but because his heart rate was somehow connected to the surgeon's collar, her head explodes. How the fuck did he know that all of this was going to happen? And why didn't he explain to Amanda that she didn't have to kill her? What the hell is happening? Well, anyways, Jigsaw's dead now, so how can they possibly continue from here? So now we come to Saw 4, and I'm sure a lot of you are wondering where the fuck is the story gonna go now? All the characters we know are either dead, missing, or mentioned in passing remarks. I wonder what Dr. Gordon is up to. So the film's main premise centers around minor characters that we barely know. So it turns out that Detective Matthews has been alive for 6 months and now he's being put in a trap. So Officer Riggs has to save him before time runs out because apparently he's obsessed with saving people? What? Like, yeah, they explain later that Jigsaw wants him to see people the way he sees them, as criminals, rapists, and shit. But what does this have to do with appreciating life? Like, the way to solve this trap is to let the time run out before he got there, so why not just lead him in the wrong direction? It would have gotten a lot less people killed, but whatever, we have to have a movie, I guess. Also, Jigsaw basically gives him the location of each trap, so why doesn't Riggs just call for backup? Oh right, because the rest of the police force are busy interrogating Jigsaw's wife, Jill. Basically from this we learned that the reason John started killing people was because he was suffering from cancer and tried to kill himself. But when that didn't work, he realized the importance of life and decided to force that belief onto other people. We also see his first victim, who was responsible for accidentally killing his unborn child. But what does any of this matter? Jigsaw's already dead, so why the hell should we even care? But anyway, after a series of traps that don't really matter, Riggs has made it to a room where Matthews is being held. And Detective Strom is right behind him, somehow. Like, how the hell did he get there that quickly if he was investigating the previous traps and interrogating Jill? Whatever, because in the middle of all this, we see the guy from the ending of Saw 3. So it turns out that everything that was happening during Saw 3 and 4 happened around the same time as each other. The room where Matthews was being kept and the room where Jigsaw was being operated on were in the same building. So what would have happened if Riggs went to the wrong room? What would have happened if Strom ended up where Matthews was? Everything just happens to go exactly the way Jigsaw planned it. Anyway, Riggs found where they're keeping Matthews and has to not go through the door or else they'll die. But what's stopping the people inside from just blocking the door? It doesn't matter because he fails miserably. And now it turns out that Hoffman has been helping the whole time. Yeah, that guy that spent most of the movie tied to a chair who's barely had any screen time across the previous movies and now we're meant to believe he's been involved since the beginning. I mean, sure, whatever. Next film. So Saw 5 comes out and it continues from the ending of the last film. We find Strom stuck in the room where Jigsaw died and then he finds some secret exit and goes investigating. But he gets knocked unconscious and placed in a trap. Through some very stupid and unrealistic means, he manages to survive and after recovering, he decides to go figuring out who's Jigsaw's third accomplice. We also see some flashbacks detailing how Hoffman got involved. So Jigsaw somehow finds out that Hoffman murdered the man who killed his sister and made it look like a Jigsaw trap. But he didn't give him a way out. So it's kind of like Amanda's backstory from the second and third film. But instead of killing Hoffman, he decides to bring him on board as the muscle, I guess, and we get shown footage of him helping out with the traps from the previous film. We're also given confirmation that he blackmailed Amanda, which got her to kill the surgeon in the third movie. But if that's the case, why didn't Amanda just show the note to John? But no, I guess there was no other option. And the third storyline centers around a game that Jigsaw wanted to set up, but now Hoffman has to do it. These 5 people all have to make it to the end of the room before they all die, and it's implied from the beginning that they all could have survived together, but since they're all idiots, there's only 2 left by the end. Well anyway, Strahm eventually pieces together that Hoffman is involved and tries to locate him. He goes through a series of rooms that I guess no one ever found, and he makes his way to a room with a trap. And for some reason, Hoffman just leaves him a tape with his normal voice on it, and if this character was actually smart, he would have run out the door with the tape and immediately brought it to the police force. But of course, Hoffman comes into the room and Strahm pushes him into the box. This all seems pretty risky, but I guess now that Hoffman is Jigsaw, he knew everything was gonna work out. What if Strahm got into the box? What if he closed the box before either of them got in? Or like I said, what if he just left the room with the tape? Well, luckily, none of those things happened. Hoffman got away, Strahm's been set up for all the murders, and he's dead now. Game over, I guess. Oh, thank God we only have 3 films left to go. And now that the Saw series has gone in every possible direction it can go, it only makes sense that this film tackles American healthcare. Yeah, the guy in the main game this time is a health insurance agent who denies John coverage for his cancer treatment. So because he's been recklessly controlling who lives and dies, he now has to choose which of his coworkers live or die. Spoiler alert, this is not one of my favorite Saw films. I mean, it's definitely entertaining in parts, but it wastes so much time forcing this socio-political commentary that it loses sight of what it is. I mean, the main game itself isn't even that interesting. The characters in the traps aren't even that interesting either. And by the time we get to the end, we find out that it wasn't even the main guy's game. The mother and the son of one of this guy's previous clients are placed in a trap and they're given the choice to let him live or kill him. But there doesn't really seem to be any consequence if they kill him, so what was even the point? Meanwhile, the remaining police officers are trying to piece together how and why Strahm was involved. Hoffman keeps trying to lead them off the case, but they keep finding more evidence that suggests Hoffman was somehow involved. And just when they finally figure out that it was Hoffman's voice on one of the tapes, they all get murdered. And then it turns out that Jigsaw left in his will that Jill had to kill Hoffman after his final game. Apparently Amanda was there when some random guy accidentally killed John's baby, and I guess Hoffman used that as leverage to blackmail her so she would kill the surgeon. So I guess as revenge, Hoffman has to die now. Whatever. Yay, now we're on Saw 7. Out of all the sequels, this is by far my favorite. Mostly because it decided to cut the bullshit and just go full-on fan service. It's like the endgame of the Saw franchise, right down to the fact that they brought back Dr. Gordon. 6 movies later and they finally paid him enough to be in another one of these. So anyway, the story starts off with Hoffman escaping the trap that Jill put him in, and now he's trying to kill her, while also continuing to set up games. How does he have time to do all this stuff? Why would he even want to continue the legacy now that he knows John wanted him dead? But anyway, while that's going on, we meet this guy Bobby, who's going to be in all the traps later. He's promoting a book about how he survived a Jigsaw game, and we can kind of tell as an audience that the whole thing is made up. So somehow Jigsaw finds out about this and places him in a trap. He has to save all the members of his publicity team and make it to his wife or else she'll die. But why is she in the trap? She's completely innocent. Why does she have to die because this guy was a lying asshole? But hey, none of that matters because Hoffman's hunting down Jill. And at this point, he's basically just the Terminator, right? He survived getting electrocuted, having his jaw ripped open, and getting a knife in the neck, and he still hasn't gone down. But anyway, he finally manages to find Jill and place her in the reverse bear trap from the first movie, and then she dies. But wait, what happened to Dr. Gordon? Wait, what? Yeah, so it turns out that Dr. Gordon has now been helping the whole time. After he crawled out of the bathroom, John nursed him back to health and brought him on as a member of his crew. But why? Why would Dr. Gordon agree to help the man that kidnapped him and tortured his family? What even happened to his family? What did he tell the police after the fact? How did he remain undetected for so long? Did Hoffman know beforehand that Dr. Gordon was involved? Did Amanda know that Dr. Gordon was involved? What the fuck is happening? Oh my god, who cares? Because now Hoffman is chained up in the bathroom and Dr. Gordon locks him in. Does that mean we're done now? So 7 years after Saw 7 and Jigsaw releases in theaters, and with how convoluted the series already is, I and a lot of other fans were excited to see how they'd screw it up even more. So the basic premise of this one is that there's a new Jigsaw game that's been started and the police are discovering bodies trying to figure out who's behind it. But the evidence they find keeps pointing in the direction of John Kramer, but he's been dead for 10 years at this point, so it's gotta be someone else. But then then by the end, they're like, oh wait, psych, it's a prequel, you dummy. So basically what they do is they try to convince you that the bodies being discovered in real time are the same as the players in the game. But by the end, we discovered that there's another person who's been helping the whole time. Someone who was involved in the original game 10 years ago who mistakenly didn't wake up in time. We find out that this guy has been killing people in the exact same way as the deaths that happened 10 years ago. And now he's trying to frame this police officer for the murders because he was somehow responsible for the murder of his wife. But this doesn't make any fucking sense. First of all, how are we supposed to believe that the game we're being shown took place 10 years ago when Jigsaw is not only the oldest he's ever looked, but he's also using flat screen TVs? Also, the way this movie fits into the timeline makes no sense because it suggests that all the stuff we see happen pre-Saw 1 happened within a year. But when you consider when all this shit supposedly took place, it's just impossible. But even beyond the timeline being more butchered than it's ever been, the characters' motivations make no sense either. Like, why would you be trying to replicate a game that happened 10 years ago if none of the bodies were ever found? If you were going to frame this guy, why would you make it Jigsaw related in the first place? Was that just a red herring? What about the female morgue attendant who you claim is your perfect alibi? Did she know you were involved the whole time, or was she genuinely convinced that the cop was behind it? And that's not even mentioning the people in the traps. How did Jigsaw know exactly what these people did? How did he know they were all going to do the exact thing that they were supposed to do? Whatever. The officer's been set up for all the murders, and now his face gets lasered, and then the movie's over.
So much for quick and simple. I mean, I'm barely scratched the surface when it comes to describing the plot of these movies. Like, I feel like I could teach a master class on the Saw franchise and still miss a bunch of shit. But anyway, now onto the main point I was trying to make with this. Why do I like this series so much if I've spent about 90% of this video shitting on it?
Well, for starters, it is a horror series that makes you think. Not just about the psychology and ethics behind John Kramer's philosophy, but it also makes you question everything that's happened and whether or not it makes sense cohesively. There are a lot of good scares and suspenseful moments in the first two films, despite the fact that the sequels resort to cheap jump scares and awkward scene transitions. And above all else, the movies are just fun. They're stupid and incomprehensible, but they're just so much fucking fun. Even though I like the Halloween sequels, most of them are genuinely bad as opposed to so bad they're good. As bad as the Saw sequels get, each one has something entertaining that keeps me coming back. The traps are over the top and fun, the characters are decently developed, and the stories in each one are such a hilarious mess that you can't help but keep watching. Regardless of the quality, the Saw series has become my new Halloween tradition, and as long as they keep making films, I'll always be back to watch them.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was a lot to get through. Trust me, you didn't have to write it. But I greatly appreciate you sticking all the way to the end, and especially if you watched all the other videos this month. I greatly appreciate it. Those took me a lot of work, and I'm very happy with how they turned out. Let me know down in the comments if you've seen the Saw movies. What do you think about them? And what is your all-time favorite horror movie or Halloween movie or Halloween guilty pleasure or whatever? Name a scary movie or Halloween-related movie that you really like. Have a happy and safe Halloween. Look forward to more videos coming real soon. I'm probably going to take a couple weeks off though, just so I can, give myself a bit of a break. But stay tuned for more content. Be sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date on when I'm posting. Follow me on all my social media, subscribe to my main channel. Everything you need to know will be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a happy Halloween. See you later.